Step in my dojo, you
Step in my dojo, you
step in my.
Hey, what's up? It's ill.gates. I got another hot tip for you. This is one for pretty much anyone who wants to make amazing melodies. This is a big hack for amazing melodies, amazing chord progressions, music that will last, music that will sound timeless. And it's a super easy hack. It's like cheating big time. Okay, so sampling, as we all know, has problems sometimes. You can sample some copyrighted material that people are maybe trying to make money off of, and then if you've made some money off of it, they'll come for your money, and there's no minimum amount. Like, you can't be like, oh, this sample was 2 seconds or less, so I'm on the other side of the law, so no. If they can recognize it and you have money to take, they can make an argument in court and take your money. I mean, even Pharrell and Robin Thicke got sued for taking the vibe of Marvin Gaye for Blurred Lines. And Marvin Gaye's family took millions of dollars from them. Millions! Because they took the vibe. What was their evidence? Pharrell mentioned that he was inspired by Marvin Gaye in an interview. Can you believe that? Terrible. The songs don't sound the same. They're not the same melodies. They're not the same beats. They're not the same anything. But Pharrell's got sued. He had to give up all this money. Him and Robin Thicke had to give up all this money. Real bummer, right? So a lot of people are like, hey, you know, I'm going to totally shy away from sampling. But there are forms of sampling that are totally legal and totally fine. And you're not going to have to do any paperwork or anything. Okay? You don't even have to clear what I'm talking about. Okay? So the first form of legal sampling that you need to know about is the recordings that are in the public domain. Okay, so I sampled Louis Jordan's Is You Is for my tune, also called Is You Is, and completely had no issues whatsoever. I even put featuring Louis Jordan in the track title. No issues, didn't have to clear it or anything. Why? Well, the copyright on that has expired, and even though it was a Billboard #1 hit, nobody renewed that copyright and nobody cared, and it's now in the public domain and you're allowed to sample it. And you can go to all these websites, just look up like, you know, songs in the public domain, and you can look up songs in the public domain and you can sample them all you like, and you don't even have to ask anybody. Okay, so the Library of Congress has this amazing public domain sampling beta website right now called Citizen DJ. If you look up Citizen DJ, you'll get it. And it's got this really cool cloud browser, kind of like Output's portal, where you can browse through sounds in the public domain. You can be like, let's say you're looking for horns. You can browse through this cloud of horn samples in the public domain, or flutes or whatever, right? Very, very cool. But there is another form of sampling that I think is even cooler than this, because this form of sampling goes back to like the dawn of human history, okay? And this is the appropriation of melody itself, right? So fun fact, many classical composers would take folk songs and redo their melodies with an orchestra and integrate them into their classical music compositions and present them to like the king or queen or whoever could afford to have an orchestra play for them, right? And this is really one of the earliest forms of sampling, where they would sample this melody itself and then revoice it through their own composition and their own, you know, band or whatever, their orchestra, and play it for the king, and the king would be rocking out to some folk melody. Apache, in his album Renaissance, which in my opinion is probably album of the year 2020, he did this with the Russian folk song Little Birch Tree, which he remixed into his tune Uibach featuring Instasamka. I hope I pronounced those correctly. And it's a banger. It's amazing. And this folk melody that's traditionally sung by a choir of children, he revoiced it with these big orchestra horns and made it into this like totally ripping bass music tune with this rapper from Russia. The video is crazy. UEBOK. You should check it out. But he was well within his rights to do it because the copyright on that folk song doesn't exist. I don't know if it ever existed. It's an ancient Russian folk song. It's totally fair game. So you can sample the MIDI from classical music, which is easily obtainable online for free. You can get these MIDI files and you can try them going through different synths, different samplers, and make your own versions of deconstructing these melodies and making them modern. And it's totally legal. It's totally free. You never have to pay out royalties or do any paperwork, right? All you have to do is just look up like classical music MIDI, maybe go on the YouTube, go down the rabbit hole of classical composers, and you can learn about especially the Russians, man, like Rachmaninoff and Shostakovich and stuff. Go down that rabbit hole, man. That is a good rabbit hole to go down. And you can get these MIDI files and start feeding them into modern sounding instruments to see what comes out. Another really excellent version of that is EPROM had a tune called Toccata, where he remixed the famous Toccata and Fugue in D minor by Johann Sebastian Bach and turned it into like a glitch hop banger. And it's an amazing song. It's so good. Okay. So I like to go on these websites and get classical music MIDI files and then take the chords apart, right? And that's exactly what Steve Duda did when he created his Cthulhu instrument. The Cthulhu instrument is a VST plugin that is a MIDI processor that does chord storage, okay? Chord storage, that's the thing to know about. This Cthulhu instrument, you can, when you load it up, basically the instrument, you have different keys on the piano, and each key, instead of playing a single note, will play a different chord. And you can load in whatever chords you want. And the demos are all these different Bach chorales where you can step your way through this Bach chorale playing like one key after another. And they're amazing. It's really, really useful, but you can load your own chords in. However, you do not need to spend the money on Cthulhu if you have Ableton. And this is where the tip all comes together. Okay, people? This is where it all comes together. So what you do is you Google classical music MIDI files, you get a whole bunch of MIDI files, and then you load them into the session view of Ableton. And then you're going to cut out where all of the best chords or little runs of melodies are. And then here's the trick. You select all those clips, set them to quantization, none, and launch mode, gate. And then you can play them with your fingers like you can with like an MPC or with Cthulhu, but you're just using the session view in Ableton, right? You already have Ableton. That's free. You can get these MIDI files for free. You just go download classical music MIDI files, find the coolest bits in those MIDI files, chop them up, quantization none, launch mode gate in the clip properties. And then you've created your own version of Cthulhu inside Ableton. You can play it with the push. You can even just MIDI learn the QWERTY keyboard and be like chord 1, chord 2, chord 3, chord 4, little melody, chord 5, chord 6, little melody, chord 4, and chop it up. And when you start feeding those classical, timeless, amazing MIDI files into your own instruments and you deconstruct them and reconstruct them, nobody can ever fault you for that. Nobody can ever take that away from you. That is a hot tip, and it's going to make your music better. So if you enjoyed this tip, please like and subscribe and comment and all that stuff, and click the little bell if you're on YouTube, and support me sharing these gems for free, because I got a lot more coming, and I love you, and I hope you make awesome music with this tip that I shared. Lots of love, and I'll see you next time. Peace.
It's like that.